What's up, guys? Nasir coming at you with another fighting game video. We're talking about Invincible versus today. Now, I will specify this at the start just so that it's known and it's not just me ripping. This is from Max. He uploaded a video yesterday talking about how the game is going to be different from other potential like 3v3 fighting games we're going to be getting anytime soon. And I really wanted to react to this because I watched about to a minute like 40 out of this whole 22-minute video, and like he was talking about some of the ways it's different. He didn't go too in depth as far as I got, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna react to this because we don't really have, like, other people are uploading this, but we don't really have just like a new trailer or a new video from the team directly. This is more so like content creators that now have access to talk about the game now that it's been reviewed and stuff. So I wanted to kind of talk about it like in that sense, you know. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get Max's reaction or opinion of the game.
From the surface level, Invincible versus
This
is
is
going
pre-alpha
for
footage.
what looks like the tried and true formula. You know, we got
your traditional tag system, you know, where they tag in and out. You saw it there. Like I said, meter at the bottom, the health bars. A critique I had, and low-key just looking at the numbers now, so another critique I just now had and I never noticed before. The health bars I feel like are very small comparatively to like everything else. Like if I go back a little bit,
from the surface level,
just look how like
versus is going
how small
for
those health bars are. Like I feel like they should be like here, like the bottom of the health bar should be here, so it doesn't feel as like compact. Because like that picture up right there of Invincible, like bro is so small. Or Mark, I think that's his name, Mark. He's like so small that like I feel like it's too small. But I get you don't want it to be too big and intrusive either. But like I said, the other criticism I had was like the numbers, bro. Like I can barely read that. Those look like backwards G's, bro. Like dead ass. Or no, that's a regular G. Backwards G would be facing the other way. But that 9 looks weird as hell. But
looks
this
like
pre-alpha footage, like I said,
true formula. You know, we got kind of a 3 versus
I forgot
3 big
her name, but Shorty throws like saw blades on the ground. It could be like a mix-up tool and also like a pressure tool. That's a traditional assist.
Tag fighter fighting game, alike and similar.
Okay, you can call them both assists
and dissimilar to some of the other ones that are being announced right now.
The
Marvel is on
one
the horizon.
assist is on cooldown in the top right.
2xKO. It is just the craziest.
Wait, did he reflect the saw blade or did she call backwards the saw blade? I missed that.
Impact. We have 2xKO.
She called it back.
That's the craziest time to be a tag versus fighting game fan. But I can almost
looks like a fight
assuredly
mode
tell you, without like a shred of doubt, even if we haven't seen the Marvel versus fighting game, this game is going to play different.
Hit the saw blade.
And
that's
from
a launcher.
A core foundational level, the reason behind that is Invincible
breaker.
versus it carries a lot of similarities to games like
she got a ground poke too. That can't. She can
it
have
has
multiple
some elements from even MVCI. It's got a bit of presentation and elements.
So that was push block, right? I wanted to read like the caption that it had on the screen when it popped up.
3 or even MVC2. It has some elements from
no, I didn't say anything.
Even MVCI.
Or at least if it did, I missed it.
It's got a bit of presentation and elements from even a game like Dragon Ball Fighters. In many ways, it's like, you know, American DBFZ.
I wonder where those flashes
but
are.
Still, it is trying to shape its own thing because
it has two look like 2 forms of push block. It has like the white version of it that like pushes them back, the opponent hitting you back. But then like there was that yellow one right there that kind of like pushed you back specifically. Like watch this.
But still,
it kind of like it didn't like push you back as much, but like it was like a little bit pushback, like just a slight pushback to get you distance.
It's trying to shape its own thing because Invincible versus is a game about two-way interaction.
You know, low key, bro, like that right there. I saw a little bit of Dragon Ball Fighters in there because that dead ass looked like a C assist, like the C assist, and then you go straight into a launcher. That low key looked like a C assist. So I see that kind of carryover.
Point of
ground
this
bounce.
experience, this game, is that the developers sort of like loved the idea that
at least this girl can like look like she has a flight install.
And while the
at least like how it visually
looks,
looks
is not the same. You just don't.
But it looks like other characters can just fly and like
every single hit,
or float gradually.
There is a lot to work with in terms of how the person on offense is playing the game and how they're communicating that, and the person that's on defense and how they're able to use their defensive options in those situations.
Knocked her fucking
So,
head clean
straight
off.
up, the biggest closest thing that ties this to KI and that two-way interaction is that there is a combo meter. There is a meter that builds over time as your combo gets bigger. And once that combo meter like extends all the way, it technically blows out. And the person that was susceptible to the combo now just drops automatically. This isn't that much different from most fighting games that have like an eventual blowout, but it's behind the scenes.
Yeah, I was about to say that's the thing, because I didn't play Killer Instinct. Most of the time this is not something they show you. It's just normally a thing that you have to learn, where you'll do a combo and then it's like boom 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 boom, okay, they fell out, too many hits. But they actually show you, which is good, so you can just visually see when it's going to drop.
Visual indicator that like the combo got too long and it is going to stop right about now.
Oh, the seamless combo meter. I thought like that would be like crouch medium, like starter. Like I thought that was the thing that was telling you how they started, and maybe this was the meter, but it just means combo meter. Gotcha.
There are certain moves that will obviously not add as much. Light attacks, very similar to KI, will build a lot of combo meter. If there's a whole bunch of light attacks and easy quick hit confirms, it builds big chunks, but the heavier attacks and maybe some like EX moves and supers might not build as much. So
okay, a good way to incentivize harder combos.
How much meter you have, what hit you got, the resources you have in that situation to get as big of a combo as possible. That might be a little dissatisfying to some people because you're like, dude, well, but I want to do a big combo, right? I just want to do some crazy labbed thing that I figured out. And then I go, this is actually not even the KI part of it yet. The whole aspect of the tag part of the game, that there's sort of free-flowing tagging. And when you free-flow tag in a character at any point, you successfully do that, the combo meter goes down.
I was about to say, does it like restart or like does it go down further,
a bit? And allowing that next point character to come in and do their own thing and have some resources to work with to fill
I wish she had did a little bit of meter right there, because we didn't get to see it there.
Again, after that, I don't know how far it goes.
Because like the combo meter right there, it started like she got a straight hit.
Do their own thing and have.
But then the meter is like already right here, but like she didn't do a 2-hit combo, so the meter popped up. Then we saw
some resources to work with to fill up the combo meter of their own, and then obviously you can tag in again after that. I don't know how far it goes, but the opponent will likely be dead at some point. And that inherently is awesome, but it leads us to the next biggest issue, which is in versus fighting games and a lot of these tag games, you just get touched and you die, my dude.
Nah, yeah,
the TOD, as it is commonly called, which is the touch of death, has sort of been a malignant part of versus games that many people love and a lot of people really dislike. When you have a game like Invincible Versus that is trying to encourage two-way interaction and you're tagging and refilling your combo gauge, which is incentivizing the tagging, then what happens? People are just going to die all the time, right? Well, not if you can break the tag portion of a combo as a defender. And that's where Invincible Versus is doing something different, where there is a risk-reward associated, where you can get a pretty long combo by yourself as a solo character, but clearly it extends and goes much further beyond when you bring in other characters. They start tagging in and doing supers.
Oh, you can force a snapback too?
You're likely going to die.
Fighter snap meta, bro?
Risk associated.
I never got to play that then when snap meta was actually a thing.
Partner during a physical attack combo,
so you can snap back just on the ground naturally and
so there's
in
that
the air.
risk-reward part where it's like, oh yeah, I want to do my TOD against this guy, or they can literally turn it on its back and do that against you. We're going to be free-flowing tagging between combos, but that is not a guaranteed reward. Like, there is no absolute guarantee that I'm just going to tag like crazy and do all this stuff. No. Dang. The opponent gets options against that, and yeah, like the options are to tag in with like a light attack, or tag in with a like a medium attack, or tag in with a heavy attack, and there's also a feint, you know. So there is multiple options in there, and the feint is like you're dropping the combo almost on purpose to bait the person into pressing a button. And
yeah, because in fighters it's like, oh, you catch them holding square, and in certain combos you can like reset them and catch them.
The other big aspect of the game that brings us all together is that there is traditional breaks as well, right? Like there is just normal breaks. Characters can come in as assist characters.
Yeah, see, like that, it was like a slight pushback.
And all of a sudden they have broken the
there was
combo,
like a more significant one
those
earlier.
are much harder to interrupt, and they're almost like guaranteed, but not until you realize if you know the person is going to come in and do like a raw breaker against any combo with their assist character, you can do a super. So there was
You can do a
counters to it.
super.
If you knew that they're coming in and breaking like immediately, like on a dime,
So you can counter
super them
breakers
and
with supers.
then get
I
a
don't know
full
if you could do
combo
that
and
in
bring the
Mortal
character to the
Kombat.
tag because their character has
Never tried to do
lost
that, I
like a
don't think.
resource. They might not be able to do the tag breaker. Like there is a two-way interaction there that is happening at almost all times. That is really nuts. And that isn't even the last, like, I would say two-way interaction aspect of the game. The final part is defense. So we have a game where you have a lot of options, and I'm about to explain those options.
Because that's the thing I want to see.
On
He said
defense,
this like
you also need really
in his
good,
first
powerful
talk about it,
defensive options
but I want
in a
to
game
hear
that
it.
has really crazy tri-dashing, tri-dashing, air dashing, hyper jumping. Characters get a flight.
Super jump, I'm assuming,
Characters,
or it's a
get a
different
lot
version of super
of
jump.
mobility options, and this is not an air dasher game specifically. This doesn't work like Dragon Ball Fighters. This
Yeah, I
is
was
a
about to say-
movement game. So
I was about to say air dashing and fighters was kind of the movement because it was always just like you always want to be dashing, but then you don't want to get randomly just dashed into a 2H. So it's like, but air dashing was kind of like the way you moved around in
much closer
fighters.
to a Marvel versus Capcom in terms of how characters move around, where some are limited in their movement and others have different kinds of movement. You can definitely expect that, where some
Grab?
characters will
Oh, there are grabs,
actually,
okay.
because most are flight characters, many of them have air dashing or proper tri-dashing, right? Where you can jump up, back, and go down forward. So that's neat.
I've never
But because all
tried
those
that before,
options
so I
are
have to
present,
look into that.
incoming the heroic strike. So when you're on defense, you're able to press a couple of buttons, the same ones that we were talking about when you're breaking. That is somewhat similar to
Yeah, see,
a
I feel like that's the
shadow counter
more
in Color
powerful
Instinct.
push
You
block.
enter
Maybe
an
it's because it was
alpha
more
counter
hits.
state
It kept
where
pushing back.
you're going to like put up a defensive barrier, and that barrier on block, if it is collided with, is going to do what is effectively an alpha counter, like a true defensive, like I'm going from defense to offense, and those obviously cost resources, which we're going to talk about in a second. On that offensive swap of that heroic strike, normally it's just a, hey, you know what, get the hell off me, bro. It just acts like a traditional alpha counter in a fighting game. However, you can tag off of it.
If you're
because the game
hold
is
on,
pretty
hold on,
open and
mouse
free
it.
flowing, and it's an
If you're more familiar with what an alpha counter is from obviously Street Fighter, let me know because I didn't play back then. I didn't keep up with that, so I don't know what like that entails specifically.
action that you're tagging off. What did we just talk about? Oh, there's all this two-way interaction in the game. Well, if you know that somebody's like, literally won't get the hell off you, you can heroic strike them, dude, get off me. And then if they're maybe not ready for it, tag in immediately. And within like 20 frames, you got to sort of react to what just happened. Did they do the quick one? Did they do this fast one? Did they do, the fake out? You can bring in
Was
a
that a
character
feint right
off
there?
that
Because he
heroic
like
strike and
backed up,
quite literally
what
turn
looked like in the
tide.
middle of
But
a
that's
special.
as we just discussed, that heroic strike into tag can be broken. So there is so much like teeter-tottering of your offensive and defensive mechanics.
Also, if that was a
constantly.
backdash,
And
that's a
that is
fucking
the
powerful
overall
backdash. Maybe
feel
so
of the
like,
game. It's taken me
hold on, let me
9
go
minutes
back.
to get here.
I want to see like, was that like a meter burnt backdash that she did to like get back? I want to check.
Literally turn the tide. But that's as we just discussed, that heroic strike into tag
Wait.
can be broken. So there is so
You got 4 bars down there and 2 bars at the top.
much like teeter-tottering of
That did use a bar. Wait, you also got a bar back. Oh, the bars are separate. So you get separate defensive mechanics on each character, and you I'm assuming you retain the same bar through all of them, but the yellow meters aren't to one character, or aren't all for all 3 characters. There's one for each character. That's interesting.
of your offensive and defensive mechanics
And it comes back,
constantly.
at least from just
And
how this
that
looks
is
right
the
now, pretty fast, but that can
overall
change
feel
as
of
well.
the game. It's taken me 9 minutes to get here. That is the overall feel of Invincible Versus, where they're going to take these moments and there's
That
a
drop?
teeter-totter, but
What
there is
drop?
a risk-reward association with
damn.
it. There's a
She didn't
moment
punch
where
that right.
you feel like, I just get to do this to you, and then the opponent realizes, wait, no, you don't. I have a whole team behind me. We are working together to stop this shit from happening. It is truly different than the majority of versus fighting games that I've ever played. And it takes a while to wrap your head around these elements sort of coming together and all of your options that are available. But my dude, once this starts happening, like you're looking at gameplay footage of a game right now where people are like, it looks a lot better in this footage than the trailer. And yeah, it looks much faster than I thought.
That It feels like every game,
once
bro.
these things start,
Or at least
start
a lot
all
of them.
colliding at different aspects, different sides of the screen.
Air grab?
This
Okay.
truly becomes the thing that I was asking for in fighting games that we have talked about, is actual mind expansion. These interactions are not the same as traditional versus fighting games. You're going to be thinking about
You
what
can cancel
happened
out of that
before
flip
and what's
thing?
happening
Okay.
next actively. And
Oh, that
it
roll,
is
I should say.
extremely engaging as a result, exactly the way that KI was back in the day.
You're done, poser.
Woof, that took a long time. So that's like the premise of what the game is setting up. The other thing I want to talk about is the interesting meters and gauges that are in the game. There's one at the top. It's these yellow bars. It's called the boost gauge. And the boost gauge is quite literally the complementary element to all that stuff we just talked about, of how the game's operational, what it's setting up for, what it's doing. The boost gauge is the whole reason for it. So what do you use the boost gauge on? Well, number one, you use it on big EX moves. Any one of the specials the character has.
So you don't use the big meter for EX stuff. Okay.
Boosted for a really big EX boosted special. They're faster, they're more damaging, they have more hits. You can also use the boost gauge to do boosted movement. So characters have traditional
so
dashing
that's that
in this
yellow
game, right?
dash
Like
that
most
she
characters
did to
dash
get away.
around, they try dash around, they fly, they up dash, like all of this kind of stuff. You can boost that movement with the boost button. And the boost button can turn what is effectively a normal kind of like, well, I'm just sitting here at full screen, and I dash forward, and I go like maybe half screen, maybe quarter screen.
and then like somebody
Full
hits you.
screen. You're in there.
Okay.
It's not a super dash from Dragon Ball FighterZ. You have to manually pivot and control this thing to the point
so
where it's
you
kinda
control
squirrely
how you
at
do
times,
dash.
and how I'm going to use this effectively is not.
So I'm assuming that's how,
super
like,
defined yet.
For example, like somebody jumps in the air. What was her name? Eve. She jumped in the air, floated back, and then immediately came in. She didn't do a boost one, but I'm assuming a boost one could like make that jump back higher or make it like faster in some way to make it more advantageous for you.
By many characters,
But
that
you
play,
still have to
but I
control it.
see
It's
the
not
vision.
just
This
press
isn't
one
thing
button
that
and then you get
handholds
in.
you, where I just press these buttons and my character flies in like Dragon Ball. No. This will take some coordination, and it also costs a resource because this boost gauge is
Also does cost resources
super
because
important.
Super Dash
This
was
boost
free.
gauge is also super important for other things like traditional breakers. It's going to use the boost gauge of the characters in the background. It is super important for
what?
things like tag breakers and stuff like that, because also there's a
Go
boost
back.
gauge.
What'd he
Also
say?
costs a resource because this boost gauge is super important. This boost gauge is also super important for other things like traditional breakers. It's going to use the boost gauge of the character.
Oh, breakers. Okay, that's what. Okay, I thought he was saying there's a way for the main character to use the other character's boost gauges, and that's why I was like, huh?
Characters in the background. It is super important for things like tag breakers and stuff like that, because also there's a boost gauge association for that when people are tagging. Like, you're going to use the boost to pop out of it, you know what I mean? And there's also boost gauge on those heroic strike moves. So it seems like this boost meter is almost more important for the functionality of the game
Also, the purple
than
health is very
even
helpful.
regular meter.
Looking at.
And yeah, what is regular meter used on? Supers. You got big level 3 supers, you got multiple level 1 supers per character for the most part. And yeah, like,
Does the
so
meter cap
this
out at, like,
boost meter
6?
is crazy. So
I know, it caps
what
out
the
at
hell are
5.
we supposed to
5,
do with
man.
it?
Okay.
Well, now we're coming back around, and tagging is really important. And yeah, you do get raw tags, right? There are
One thing I will say, like I said, some of the UI I feel like needs to be bigger. I feel like this right here, where it
multiple
says
ways
the
to get a
5 max
character in
meter,
and
bro,
out
that like that needs to be bigger. That's
relatively
way
safely. If
too
you want-
small in the heat of battle. If we try to look at it, and maybe they have made it bigger. You know, like I said, this is pre-alpha, so everything in this could be different visually. It was just something I noticed, and I was like, that's really small.
But there's also a risk because raw tagging does inherently have a little bit of risk. And by the time you are doing like block tags and all of this kind of stuff that the game offers, Invincible Versus is a game that wants you to swap those characters out. This is a team game, my dude. Your point character is important, but your point character can only be a point character for so long. You're going to have to get them the hell out of there, and they're going to have to make their way into the back row so that they can build back their boost gauge. Because if you suddenly tagged out a character that is like, oh man, they used all their boost gauge for offense, and now I tagged them out, suddenly if things go south for me, oh
Yeah,
no, they
defensive
don't have
boost gauge,
boost
yeah.
gauge to help me out. oh God. So you have to find ways to mitigate that resource constantly. That resource is like one of the most important parts of the game, and getting this flow of getting characters in and out. They have no boost gauge to break now. They have no way to heroic strike because I used all my boost gauge on this stuff. If it starts to sound like these things are complementing each other, that is the whole point of it, man. Like, this boost gauge thing is a resource that builds in the background, but it actively helps you out with defense and offense in the given moment.
So it does actively
and the
build
only way
itself.
you're going to engage with it is a way of having this associated risk reward.
It's not like one of those
just
things
getting
where it
these
only
characters in
builds
and
itself
out
off
and
of
in and
like
out
the
and
hacking.
swapping them in and out and taking care of their assist and doing all that. It's once you eventually get a grasp of paying attention to those resources, it's crazy. Just like locked in flow state of like my team just pulling off the craziest conversion and then cashing out everything to take them out. It is so sick. But yeah, those are a couple of my favorite aspects of the game. Like I said, a couple of key components are the two-way interaction, this boost gauge that encourages that two-way interaction where you're going to go in and out a whole bunch.
I will say, I wonder if all this learning will kind of border on the was it the I was about to say Project L. It's not 2XKL. It's like 2XKL for some people started maybe because it took longer. It got like this for them, but some people started to feel like it was just an information overload. Like, oh my god, like I gotta learn all this new stuff that they've added because they've added like 12 different things, and I'm like, granted, with this game we don't have a frame of reference for it, so maybe it won't have that problem. But I wonder, like, initially, will it be, you know, the people on Twitter complaining about like, oh my god, this is so much to learn and it's just too much, and this is like, I want to just mash buttons and play the game and not fucking get steamrolled, like, you know? Obviously, it's a complaint that's probably going to happen anyway, but I wonder, will it be like a lot of people, or will it just be a minority of people that feel that way?
And the fact that the game has movement, man. The game has more traditional movement, like I would say manipulatable fighting game movement than any game that's out there. And we haven't seen everything for the new Marvel game, obviously, but when it comes to the traditional or the usual tag-based fighters that we
I'm
have
assuming
played
that's
over the past few years, from Dragon Ball FighterZ,
maybe you
to all
hold
of
the
it,
button
like,
and you can
the
feint.
last time we got a game that'll let you manipulate movement a lot was kind of like MVCI and clearly Ultimate Marvel 3. This will be a game where characters will be moving around the screen and doing some crazy stuff. Like once you, like, the limiters are off once you actually like fully utilize this stuff. And that is the last thing that I have to say about my impression over this game over the past like long while. I've seen it from an early state to it eventually where it is at now, where they're finally ready to show it. It feels like they're trying to create systems that cover each other but complement each other. They're trying to create systems that allow fighting game player freedom to exist, but not get like absolutely disgusting. I've described this game as like an 8-lane highway. It's not a 2-lane highway. No, it's not even a 4-lane highway. It is an 8-lane highway of people in all these interesting opposite directions fighting each other, but it does have guardrails. There is a point where things can maybe get like a bit too crazy, and there is systems in place to sort of like, hey, so we have a vision of where this goes, but we're just gonna give you the most freedom of how you're going to interpret your defense and interpret your offense against another person, you know?
Yeah, and that's just where I don't know how the internet is going to take hold of that, because sometimes you give the internet what they ask for, and like they'll ask for a game like this, for example, you'll give them this, and then they hate it because it's too much and it's too complicated. Like I said, the thing that people were saying with 2XKL, where it's like, this is too much, it feels like they're doing too much, they just like should have stuck with the last build to fix things instead of like coming up with all these new problems and stuff. And it's like, obviously they're trying to give people freedom and like stuff to do that people ask for, but sometimes you give people what they want and then they end up not liking it, you know? So I'm just it's just a concern that I see from this, because it is a lot and it does seem like a lot of positives, but sometimes too many positives to certain people can be a negative.
And there will be answers throughout all of it, and those answers will have risks and rewards, which is really cool, and pretty much is the way that Killer Instinct was designed. And most of that is because there's a combo meter.
I don't know
and
who
that
I'm
combo
playing
meter
this game,
allows for a lot of design.
especially
freedom.
as like
it just
team.
allows for a lot of things
We
to
also
take
gotta see how
place
many people are
within
in
these
this.
systems.
I know nothing about Invincible, so
does it fit this?
I don't even know
combo meter?
like
Does this
the
effectively
full team that they
allow
could
you to
have.
play the game and you want? Is it too restrictive?
But
Is
just
it not
looking
too
at the
restrictive?
limited
Things
amount
that
of
they have
gameplay
been
we've gotten from
dialing
these
in for
6
so long,
characters.
Man. It has been an absolute key
technically
component
4
of
characters,
Invincible
but it's only
versus this
3,
entire
and then
time, and that is
another
the thing
unique
that makes
one on
it
the other
different
team.
from other fighting games. You're
I
going to be
don't really
your
know
head
who
around
I'd
this
wanna play at
game
this point.
a lot differently than almost any of the other tag fighters in the market right now. And to be fair, yes, I'm super excited for a lot of it, and I have friends making it, but I did have some criticisms over the game's development, and many things are still being worked out. The biggest criticism is that the game's a lot of buttons. It is
Yeah, I was about to say,
technically,
this seems
at
like
the
it's a lot.
moment, 8 buttons, and that is a light, medium, heavy. There's a special button with like neutral, forward, and back specials from what I recall. There's assist 1, there's assist 2, and there's also a boost button, and there's also a dash button.
Wait,
And yeah,
so boost isn't... So boost is its own button instead of it being like... I don't know. Because on one hand, it's kind of like that in like Mortal Kombat with EXs. You press a button on top of the traditional input to get a boost for it. I don't know, that's just weird. And then dash button isn't like too crazy because some games have a dash button you can put on, but like normally I don't really use that. I don't know.
One of the biggest criticisms is that this entire time I've been playing this game on controller, and it just doesn't really feel like it fits arcade stick. So I've been pretty emphatic about that the entire time. They know that there is a demand out there for other options of control schemes. So they're super aware, because me personally, I would just like motions, man. I think Fireball forward and Fireball back is enough. I think it can work in a game like this. And I think it would greatly benefit the game to have like a classic.
Oh yeah, I think I saw on Twitter he said that either there will be, or they're trying to do simple inputs and traditional inputs, kind of like Street Fighter. I don't really care about either, because I play games with both.
That has been a sentiment
Has
that has
no
been
preference
echoed from a lot
either
of
way.
people, especially in the fighting game community, that have tried this stuff, and it isn't just myself. So I think options are great, man. I think a multitude of control options are good, and I hope that they do eventually find the way to make that happen in the game. That's pretty much my biggest criticism, is that like I almost can't even play this on stick because there's so many buttons, dude. And then obviously like the visuals, like so much of the visuals, I do like the game's art style, but some things are still just looking a little crunchy, and transitional frames and animations and all that kind of stuff. I think a lot of it does look amazing when it's in motion.
It does look good.
It's so similar to like 12 years ago, man. This is a game you gotta play. Like, if there's an opportunity at like either Comic-Con, or maybe if there's something at EVO, or any of these like public trade shows in the near future, hopefully there's a demo. This is one of those games where people will initially look at it just like Killer Instinct and go, man, I don't know if that looks very good, right? I don't know if that's for me. But trust me, dude, like once you play the game and wrap your head around its mechanics, and you just start touching buttons and doing things, and the flow of the game starts kicking in, even at a very early level, it starts to click very fast. And
like I said, to the point, I'm not trying to hammer it home or belabor it, but like I said, that's to that point that he says once you wrap your head around it and really get in tune with the game's mechanics, some people are just by nature not gonna give it that shot. Some people are gonna play it for an hour and then they don't feel that immediate satisfaction to it, and are not gonna endorse the game, and gonna talk negatively about it. That's the like I said, besides the whole button thing that he talked about, I think that's gonna be a big thing that is gonna have to tackle. It has to be fun at the casual level, but has to have depth for people that want it. If you just make this most like intrinsically, maybe I'm not using that word right, but if you just make a fighting game that's like really depth and complex and like really hard for like a casual person to just get in and win and have fun with, then the casuals won't like it. And then they'll just say that like this is for the hardcore fighting game fans, and it'll kind of limit the scope of what the game could be. But the thing about like fighters and other games that people really enjoyed is that in fighters you can just get in and mash buttons. But if you wanted to learn shit, there was shit to learn. And like that's kind of like the balance games need, but it's kind of a hard balance because it really depends on how your audience takes the game.
that was the identical experience that I had with Killer Instinct back in the day. They have like one of the first gory fighting games, and they're dialing up all the gore and crazy fantastical stuff that the violence of the Invincible series allows. We're only seeing so much of it right now, dude. So it's like, yeah.
Maybe I'll play
trust.
Omni,
like I know that stuff's going to go
I didn't
in
play
bigger,
him in Mortal
crazier
Kombat 1,
directions,
but I wonder how
and
you're gonna
they
play
are
this.
obviously aware that like having a game that is polar and almost a mix of Dragon Ball Fighters, like visually, and Mortal Kombat is something that really hasn't been done before, and is easily the most identifying and visual appealing aspect of Invincible versus right now. But that's about it. I can probably talk about all of these individual systems and what the game is doing at the moment, things will likely change a whole bunch by the time it comes out. But I'll be talking about it on stream, reviewing footage.
Because what, didn't we get released at 2026 for this game?
Footage we saw in this video. But yeah, just sort of waiting and hoping if there's another event soon where people are going to get their hands on the game and we see what that footage looks like, because this is all B-roll. Everything you're seeing on these channels is pretty much identical, and I cannot wait to see the game in the hands of players that are playing it at like a medium competency, where they're like sort of using most of the mechanics and stuff. Trust me, dude, in some of our gameplay sessions, there's like things happening where when you just like lift off of the chair, I cannot believe that worked. And like Tasty Steve is behind me and Vicious, and people are like, what the hell? Like there was many of those sort of scenarios that play themselves out in these latest builds that I just can't wait people to see. You gotta try it. So anyway, that being said, I'll be back with more as soon as we see more on the game and get to show.
Okay, so I'm assuming that's everything Max is going to talk about. So from my impressions of it, like I said, I see a lot of positives. I see things that people are gonna like, and I see some things that I think people may not be like as gun-ho on. Let me know in the comments if you're a casual fighting game fan, if you're a veteran who's played fighting games his whole life or played them a large part of their life. You know, let me know your opinions on what you've seen, because I think there's a lot of positives. Some things that they'll obviously have to work out because no game is perfect. And some things will need some ironing out for casuals, and they may have to adjust things for casuals. They may have to adjust things for the competitive players as well. But let me know how you feel about Invincible Versus. I think it has the potential to be the maybe not biggest, because I think the Marvel Tokon will be bigger just because it's Marvel. But I could see this being one of the pillar fighting games for the next couple years, depending on how its launch goes, or how it's how it is when it gets into the hands of everybody, or at least a large majority of people. That will really like give the first impressions of how it is, but it'll really be like the release of the game that really tells us how, or like a public beta test that really tells us how people feel, if they like it or not. But let me know down in the comments below if you're excited for the game. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.
I wanna be good, but I'm stuck being bad. I wanna get money and chill by myself. I wanna spend money, my family need help. I need me a girl just to help with the stress. Somebody to care, this hair, this rare, beware. My faults is heavy, this chain is heavy. I know they gon' hate me cause haters is plenty. I rode in an Altima, burned out a Chevy. Those times were heavy.